Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello and welcome to the latest episode. It's Tuesday, the 24th of March, 2026. I hope you're well and you had a good weekend. It's going to be a slightly shorter episode tonight because I am absolutely shattered. I have completely run out of steam. I'm not quite sure what's going on with me. And I did have a reasonably busy but also quite relaxing weekend. So I have no idea what's going on, but I really, really just need to fall asleep. So some things to fill you in about what I've been up to over the last few days. So I was up on the plot over the weekend and half the climbing roses are now in place. So my other half did the bed prep for me. If you listen to the last episode, I think I was talking about how I'd done removed a lot of nettles and found some bindweed in there. And so he was very good and helped me dig over the bed completely. In fact, he didn't help me, he did it all himself. And then he put some slates in to try and discourage the nettles from coming back out from underneath the duck house. And then he put the rebar up, which is going to act as the trellis for the roses. Put that on with battens, so it's sitting about maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch off the actual duck house. That is amazing. So it means I can actually get the ties in really easily and do that. And the compassion roses have gone in there. And the other climbers are still sitting in their tub. So they still need to go in the ground. But at least I've made a start with the climbers. So that's great. And then I've also planted the phlox that's just been lying on the soil unplanted for probably months now. I was going to say weeks, but I think it's months. And I divided that in two before I replanted it. And that's a really big plant that I've actually just dug up out of my garden and taken up to the plot. And I didn't seem to have done any harm being out of the ground, to be honest. I mean, there's so much hoo-ha about, dig a hole before you move anything, get everything ready. Well, that's just been sitting on the ground for, a month or so and not come to any harm whatsoever. And it's put on absolutely tons of new growth. So that is very good. And we also moved the buddleia out of the way of the path. So that just needs a bark mulch to go down. And then the entrance is all tidy, which I can't tell you how excited I am about that, because there's nothing worse psychologically than going through the gates and then there's just masses of plants in the way. It's really silly. And it made it very difficult to get a wheelbarrow down. So thank goodness that's all been done. And then what's left of my tulips have now gone on top of the roof of the one of the duck houses. And that is the only place that the rats cannot reach. So I was going around everywhere on the field trying to find somewhere where I could put the remnants of my crates. So there's like 1.5 crates that have still got some tulips in, and then a couple of tubs. And the tubs had upturned plastic pots sitting on the top to stop anybody eating those as well. And what had happened is that greenery had come out of the holes of the upturned tubs and something had eaten the tips of the greenery off. So, I mean, literally nothing is safe up there. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I have got all these crates and tubs now sat on top of the duck house, which means that if I want to water them, I have to get the step ladders out and hopefully they just won't blow off because it's extremely windy tonight. I don't know what's going on with weather. Like, spring is definitely over. And it feels almost autumnal out there at the moment. Anyway, it makes me chuckle actually looking up and seeing these crates sat on top of the duck house. And nothing so far, touch wood, nothing bad has happened to them. And because the squirrels are no longer part of the team, I'm not too worried about anything getting them. Obviously, it would be a stupid place to put them if I still had squirrels around, but they have gone. And the weather was absolutely gorgeous over the weekend. I don't know how it is for you at the moment, but it was really, really lovely here. And I sat outside on Saturday afternoon after I'd been working all morning. And I may have even got a slight tan. It was that gorgeous, although it did drop to freezing a couple of nights, which doesn't seem to have had an impact on anything. I think it was just more of a shock to me because I didn't really realize it. Like, I see the forecast and I look at it and I think, no, I'm sure it won't be that bad. And then you wake up in the morning and there's actually a frost on the ground. I also managed to plant my rugosas out. Now, I thought I'd got 20, but it turns out I only had 10. So I'm not sure what happened there. They had also been healed in temporarily into a couple of huge black plastic pots with some compost. And what was very interesting about them versus the climbing roses is that when I tipped the climbing roses out of their pots to plant them, their roots had not changed at all. They literally just have roots and that is it. And they'd put on lots of top growth, but there was nothing going on below the soil level. And what was interesting about the rugosas when I tipped them out of their tub is that they had practically filled the tub with roots. Just a huge mass of beautiful, fresh, white, brand new roots, which I was very, very excited about. Now, the rugosas are super quick and easy to plant because they're on their own roots. So there's no graft, so you don't have to worry about planting depths or anything. You just literally bung them in the ground, and they're so tough and so invasive. I think it's actually illegal to plant them in the wild in the UK nowadays because they just will just take over. So they're an absolute piece of cake to get in the ground, and they are literally as tough as old boots. So they are the cultivar. They're the Hansa variety I've bought, but so they're a sort of hybrid cultivar, but basically they're on their own roots. So very, very quick and easy to do that. And I bought them really for their scent and for their hips as much as anything. So I know they've got, oh gosh, I'm not supposed to be saying so anymore. Sorry about that. They have got very beautiful flowers, very gorgeous petals, and extremely highly scented, which I'm very excited about. But if any of the florists don't want them because they are unbelievably thorny and I imagine they'll be quite tricky to work with, then they might be useful to be kept just for the hips, and then I can get like what do you call it, like a thorn stripper, which I could do if people want them for flowers as well. But if they don't, then fine. I understand they might be sellable for the hips. And if not, I'll just keep them for myself. Now, in the greenhouse, there's been a lot more germination going on. So nearly everything I have sown has come up. And I haven't sown anything in the last few days, but I am due to get back in there soon, maybe tomorrow. And so the next lot, I need to check my terrifying spreadsheet to see what's doing with that. But certainly the Ami are now up, the stocks are up, all the sweet peas are up, which is amazing, and also slightly terrifying because they seem to grow really, really fast. The Orlai are up, and all of the veg is up. And I'm so enjoying the veg because, like I said to you, there's no pressure with the veg. I haven't even recorded when I sowed anything. They're just all in great big trays. And so I've got a huge tray of chard, some spring onions, all the peas are up, the broad beans are up. So that is really exciting. And they just seem so calm and easy to do. Whereas I just look at all the flower seedlings, the annuals, with a mixture of just terror and excitement. Excitement, obviously, for what they're going to turn out to be, but also slight terror that you look at each plant and it just represents money and therefore pressure to get it right, whereas the veg just sort of represents fun and doesn't really matter if anything goes wrong with it. And that is what's been going on in the greenhouse. Now, in other news, I had a really exciting meeting yesterday with one of my podcast listeners. She is a gorgeous lady called Carolyn who has home close flowers in Oxfordshire. And she was kind enough to message me ages ago, probably talking autumn now, with some suggestions for me. And we ended up having a conversation. And anyway, we met up yesterday, had a spot of lunch, and we had so much to talk about. We honestly could have spent the whole day together. She just is very knowledgeable, very generous with her time, and just had so many things to pass on, which was amazing. But the best bit of the day, and the main reason why she was coming over, was to give me a demonstration on number one, how to do a spiral tie, and number two, how to wrap it properly in paper. Because if you were listening to some of my episodes last year, I had so many dramas. Firstly, trying to do a spiral hand tie, and secondly, how to wrap the things. And I did start out very early in the season trying to do it with the first of my seasonal flowers. And I was really struggling because I had a lot of cornflowers and I was too frightened to actually practice with my proper stems. I didn't want to buy anything from the supermarket to practice. So I was trying to practice with my cornflowers, and I did extremely badly because, as you know, the stems are incredibly thin and wispy, and it was such hard work. And the volumes of flower that you needed in order to even attempt a bouquet just made it so difficult. Anyway, as the year went on, I got better and better at doing my spiral tie, but I'm still absolutely nowhere near good enough. And then, of course, the next drama was, how do you actually wrap these things in paper? Now, a couple of listeners sent me tips, which was very useful. But Carolyn actually bought with her some stems from her garden and some tissue paper, some brown paper, some cellophane, raffia, and a couple of boxes so that we could actually go through everything. And she did this fantastic demo of how to do it. And the only thing that was tricky for me is that I'm right-handed, she was left-handed, so I was watching what she was doing, thinking, "Oh, I need to do that all the other way around." But she did a brilliant demo, and we had some foliage as well, which was amazing. And then once we got this spiral tie, we could actually practice doing with the paper. So she was showing me how to do the folding, how to snip up from the base and then fold the corners, how to wrap them, where she puts any tape if she uses tape, and where she uses a sticker. And it was so amazing to watch somebody do it right in front of you, as opposed to all these YouTube tutorials that I have been watching over the years. Because to see someone do it right there in front of you and understand the logic of why they would put the sticker there, for example, where you have like 3 folds or 3 joins or something, put a sticker there and put the raffia here. And she also showed me how to make a proper huge bow out of raffia, which was so amazing. I can't believe I know how to do that now. I was chuffed to bits with that. We put it all together, and then I bought the bouquet home and put it in a vase, and it just looks so amazing. It really, wrapping stuff really makes the difference. It really turns what I mean, turns what looks like just a bunch of flowers in a bucket into something so incredibly special. So it really made a visual uh, it made the process of why hand ties are so much more expensive than when you're just selling things in a bucket, because the effort that goes in, the time, the effort, the skills, the knowledge, the practice that you have to do to get it right. Because I had a bit of a practice yesterday with Carolyn. Of course, mine is nowhere near as good as hers, even though you just kind of think, I don't know, maybe it's me being daft, but you sort of think it can't be that difficult. I'm just putting some flowers together and I'm just going to wrap them in paper. How difficult can it be? How time consuming can it possibly be? But it really is. And even if you're a pro like her, it still takes a certain amount of time. And for a novice like me, it takes an awful lot longer. But that was absolutely amazing. And yeah, Carolyn is wonderful. She's got a fantastic website. If you want to have a look at that, it's called Home Close Flowers. And she's got a beautiful website, and I'm very much looking forward to going over to her place to have a look at her plots later this year. So, Carolyn, if you're listening, thank you so much. You are a superstar. Now, a couple of other things I wanted to mention, because I had a question about this from a listener. What's the difference between succession sowing and batch sowing? And I actually had to look this up because I felt like I knew what the terms meant. But then when I thought about how I was going to answer the question, I realized I'm not entirely sure how I would word it. And I think there are actually a couple of meanings of succession. So when I was rereading Lisa Mason Ziegler's book, she's talking about succession sowing in a way that means you have flowers from, say, May to October. So you would succession sow so that you have flowers, you don't have any gaps. Basically, you make sure that you have got a product through the entire season that you're working through. And that is like one definition, and they might be different flowers. So you'll have something in June, something in July, something in August, etc., etc. And then you've got flowers which will run over that whole period of time. And the other kind of the way that you would describe succession sowing is sowing your seeds, sowing one variety of your seeds repeatedly so that you have more than one peak flowering period for that flower, which is why I will sow Orlia at the beginning of March, and then another lot a week later, and another lot a fortnight later, and then 3 weeks later, so that over the course of the summer I will have Orlia flowering all of the time. Now, this is something I didn't do last year. I just did one batch of them at the beginning of March, and then they have this sort of 3 or 4 week period where they're just peaking, and then they're over, and that's it, done. I wanted to make sure that I had a longer growing season of Orlio, hence doing multiple sowings of them so that there is a succession of Orlia flowers, and that sits within the overall succession on the plot, which is to make sure that I have things flowering from May to October. And the thing about the batching is just it's just that period where you do that one particular succession. I'll do a batch of Orlia, and that could be because I've done 3 or 4 different trays or whatever. However I've done it, that would be a batch of Orlia. So I hope that makes sense. The other thing that I did new this year was to divide my seeds into hardy, half hardy, and tender. And I've actually put those seeds into 3 different boxes so that they are completely separate. And I've started the hardies off early, so in March. And also, this is what everybody else started doing in autumn, because you can, of course, do them in autumn and then they overwinter. But I don't do that. So I have done my hardy ones. I start off first of all. My half hardies are probably going to start this week or next week, and then the tenders will start in April, sort of mid-April, kind of going on like that. Because what you don't want to do is start your tenders off at the beginning of March, for example. They can't go outside until all of the risk of frost is gone. So dependent on where you are in the world, for me, it's going to be somewhere around mid-May, something like that. Although there's obviously always a risk of frost really up until the end of May, although things can be covered. So I don't want my tenders to be ready before the last frost, so that they are not just sitting around going leggy in the greenhouse, taking up space, requiring lots of TLC and everything. So for me, there doesn't seem any point in starting them right now, in the same way that I wouldn't start my tomato seeds now. I would wait until mid-April, just until everything is also warmed up. Because if you start them now, they need heat and they need much warmer soil and much warmer conditions. And there's just no point kicking them off now. And the other thing that I was going to mention briefly was the 2 different techniques that I use when I sow my seeds. And I've got a variety of containers in the greenhouse that I use. And I talked a lot about using the old chicken thigh trays, because they're sort of what do you call it, like a rectangle in shape, and they're just like the perfect depth. And I put my own holes in the bottom of the trays, and they just are a lovely manageable size. And then I've also got the sort of the larger, more conventional black trays, which have got holes in, which I recycle every year until eventually they just give up the ghost. And then I've also got masses and masses of bedding plant containers. So these are ones that are either sort of divided up into 6 squares or sometimes 4 squares. And I also keep all of those, and they're really helpful as well. They're very much larger, so I tend to use them for really big seeds. So things like sunflower seed or my broad bean seeds go in there, and I'll put 1 seed in each of the holes. But they they take up an awful lot more space. You can fit a lot of soil in, and they're just much, much bigger. So they are not as good as the smaller trays, like the chicken thigh trays or just the black plastic trays, for when you just need a real volume of getting things going at the beginning. And I hope that all makes sense. My sweet peas obviously go in the toilet roll tubes within the crates, and it really is sort of guesswork for which tray goes with which seed. I tend to put the smaller seeds in the smaller trays, and much bigger seeds go in the individual ones. And the chicken thigh trays are kind of just a middling ground for for seeds. They're very useful and big enough that they don't dry out. Sometimes if you use the smaller the container, the more likely the compost is to dry out. So they need a little bit more TLC. And I also had a question about watering, and I water all of my stuff from the bottom. So what I tend to do is I've got a table, a very small plastic table in my greenhouse, and I'll put a really huge black plastic square tray, like a potting tray, on the table, and I'll fill it with water, and I will just sit the seed trays on it, go off and do something for 5 minutes, come back, put them back on their shelves, put the next batch on. I don't like watering from above for a number of reasons. Mostly, obviously, when you've just sown the seeds, you don't want to disturb the seed and wash them off. And also, I feel like even when the seed is germinated, it's the roots that need the water, not the fleshy bit of the actual seedling. And there's a risk that you just create this kind of super damp environment, and then you risk having damping off, which is where you just turn up and everything is just literally keeled over. They're on their sides and they've just rotted. So it's very much a question of watering the compost rather than watering the seedling. And that's the same for the gardening as well. I always water the soil rather than the plant because it's the roots that really want to have the water. So that is that. And I think that is everything that I wanted to tell you about actually this week. So I hope you found that of interest. I've had a couple of questions from listeners to my wedding and event florist who's going to be a guest on the podcast. It's not too late for you to get your questions in, so please do send them over. You can drop me a DM on Insta, or my email address is on my website. That's also in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. I have set up a new feature on the podcast, which is, let me just go over and have a look at that. Where is that? So at the very bottom of the show notes, let me just have a look at this. So yeah, at the very bottom of the show notes, there is a line that says, a sentence that says, text the podcast here. This is a new thing. It's a free service that's offered by the people that host my podcast. And it's basically like a super quick way for you to get in touch with me. So if you click on that link, it allows you to send what does it say here? Send a voicemail. Oh, I don't know what that is actually. Oh, interesting. Oh, maybe it's because I'm doing it on the laptop. So I think if you do it on a phone, it sends a text message to me, but what it does is it hides your phone number, so I don't ever get your phone number, and it also doesn't come through to my mobile number. It goes through basically onto the podcast system. But anyway, the point is, it's a really quick and easy way if you just want to send a text message to me. And like I say, I don't get your phone number, and so I can't do anything or collect anything with it. But that's just another way that you can get in touch with me if you wanted to. And I would love to get your questions to put to the wedding and event florist. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and that you will come back and join me on Friday for the next episode, including the plant profile series. And Friday will be here probably in about 30 seconds at the rate that this week is going. So have a fantastic week, and I'll catch up with you soon. All the best.